right now is the great Carla Sands, who was a candidate for U.S. Senate in the state of Pennsylvania. One of my very favorite people in politics, a very new friend. But Robert and I knew it was love the very first day that we met her up at
The
Doug and
rally.
McClinko's,
Yeah.
and we are very, very, you know, happy to have you join us today, Ambassador Carla Sands.
Oh my gosh, Carlos, I'm so happy to join you too because the momentum is with us. It's the big mo. And so, it feels good to be here right now because you never know as things were going on. But I'm so excited and tomorrow night I'll be at an event with Dr. Mehmet Oz. I think he's going to be in Bethlehem. Tonight he's with President Trump at the rally, and the momentum with Doug Mastriano, with Mehmet Oz. It's really exciting, and I know you've been talking about it, but I just want to encourage everybody that's listening or watching today that they not just go vote on Tuesday, but that they get their family, and if they need to, drive them to the polls, walk them in. And if they could just talk to their friends at church tomorrow, make sure that they're really specific to vote all the way down the Republican ticket from the top to the bottom so that we can turn the ship of our Commonwealth and our country around. Talk to their men's breakfast friends, their mom's group, their people at their workplace. They'll allow this right before the election. And we know we have to drive all of the people that are like-minded, no matter what their party, to the polls on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's fantastic advice. Just to let people know who you were an ambassador to Denmark, Falkland Islands, and I believe another area as well under Donald Trump. One of the things that drove me, not just hearing you speak in your positions, but to how impressive you were, is despite the fact that there was so much pressure and so many people around Trump that I think at the end of the day, when the going got tough, kind of felt lacking, to say the least, you stuck with him through thick and thin. And I think that it's important that people understand that perspective. You also ran in this race for Senate. Can you talk to people a little about, we might have differences in the primary, and it might not be your ideal candidate that won, but as someone who ran yourself, the importance of getting out there and voting for these Republicans to stop these devastating Democrats from holding power.
Yeah, this is not our mom and dad's Democrat Party, right? And we know that the Republican Party stands for love of God, love of country, love of family. These are very important themes and issues and beliefs because the other side no longer does. We love our small businesses, our precious and great small businesses, which is the backbone of our Commonwealth and our country. And so I did, and it was a very tough race, very contentious in the primary, and different kinds of messages, voices. But I'll say this, always, without exception, the Republican candidate in today's Republican Party is going to stand closer to your values than the other side. And if you're a Democrat or an independent, I really encourage you, vote up and down the Republican ticket. If you love your kids and you want to have something to say about what they're learning at school and whether they're going to be sexually groomed and sexually confused or not, whether you don't want more lockdowns, because I think they're coming down the road. That's what's being, sort of talked about globally. And now there's a lot of control coming out of Europe and these international organizations. So we need a governor that's going to put Pennsylvania first, and we need a senator that's going to protect our energy industry, that's going to make sure that he votes with us in mind and not with the, I will just say, globalist leftist agenda in mind. Because whether it's Shapiro or Fetterman, they will vote with the left. The Democrat senators, they don't vote against their party. Fetterman's not a Joe Manchin. So if you love your energy industry, Oz is going to back it all the way. He has absolutely committed to do that. And Doug Mastriano has told me personally, he will ban that, the RGGI. He's going to get us out of that, just like Virginia's working to do that. And that's going to skyrocket our energy costs and our home heating even more than it is today. He's also pledged to me that he will not allow us to ban gas-powered cars in Pennsylvania after 2035. And Pennsylvania is part of that crazy California cabal of wanting us all to be driving battery-powered cars. What the heck? I
Yeah.
want my free choices. I'm an American. So there's one other thing I just want to share, if I have another second or two.
Sure.
Of course.
Yeah. All the time you
Well,
need, go for
thanks.
it.
All right. Well, I just wanted to talk about character for a minute. Character matters. And when you look at these candidates, you look at somebody like Josh Shapiro that sued the Little Sisters of the Poor because their belief is we don't want to pay for abortifacient. And he sued them twice, not once. If you look at someone like Fetterman, who wants abortion up until the moment of birth, who wants to ban fracking, even if he's saying something different right now to get elected. This is a guy that didn't pay his taxes for years, didn't support the schools where he was the mayor. Character matters. When Mehmet Oz was running against me and a couple of other people, he was a very decent man. I'll give you a couple of examples. My dear father had triple bypass surgery during the campaign at a very heated time. He walked up to me and personally said to me, Carla, I heard about your father. I'm really, really sorry. Please tell him he's in my thoughts. Nobody else did that. That's the mark of a gentleman. Let me just give you another example. One of our cohort had emergency cancer surgery. And he was at an event, exhausted, had a 2-hour drive home, and he's just post-surgery. Well, Mehmet Oz took a look at him and said, how you doing? He said, oh, I'm okay. I'm going to drive home. And he said, no, you're not. One of my team is going to drive you home. And he sent that competitor home with one of his team so that he wouldn't have to drive. He is a fine man and a really hardworking man. He's self-made. His dad grew up in a dirt floor home. And then his dad came to Ohio as a young doctor. And we know the story. Mehmet Oz got not just a medical degree, but a business degree from Penn at the same time. I don't know anybody else that did that. And he is a self-made, hardworking man. He knows how to set an alarm clock and get up. John Fetterman, his competitor, hasn't shown up a third of the time. And that's before the stroke. Now he doesn't show up hardly at all at the state capitol. So we have a real contrast. And I'll also say this, this is a spiritual war. This is a war for the heart and soul of our country. The left agenda is no longer the Democrat agenda of our parents' era. This is an agenda to fundamentally transform our country. And I, for one, don't like the direction they're trying to take us.
Yeah, and I don't know how much time you have, but I just wanted to see if I think you said something really powerful there. And that is, we shouldn't just be reaching out to drive up the vote amongst our base. I've always believed that the ideals that we believe in is right for everyone in this country. And so we don't have to change what we believe in to reach out to people that traditionally might not vote Republican. And you're not an immoral person if you look at some of the ambassador's position or Carlos and I's position and you disagree, right? That's fine. It's fine to disagree on actual positions. But the point you're making here that I think is very important is the extremism that we see from so many of these Democratic parties. If you feel that you've been a lifelong Democrat or a lifelong independent and you're sort of don't know where to look now because the party you voted for is now a party that believes in abortion up until the day of birth, or believes in the sexualization of children, or believes that inflation's not a big deal and it's your fault if you're complaining about it, there is a home for you. And you could come in and you could disagree about some of those policies, but we're not the caricatures that have been painted by a sycophantic propagandist media that we're just all a bunch of rich white people. Rich, I wish I had 2 pennies to rub together. You know, we're diverse people. We like having fun. We're not the monsters they paint us as. And we're definitely welcome to take your vote and think that we would represent, and I know you could speak to this, Ambassador, like if you won, you weren't going to just represent the people that voted for you. You were going to represent all of these people. And I think that's something that can't be said of the Democrats. Their extremism will continue to only represent the very minority extremists that believe in those positions.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The Democrats have weaponized the government against the other side. And also, I just wanted to just say I was the ambassador to Denmark, Greenland, and the Faroe Islands. The Falklands are down here. Australia
Whoops.
and Faroe Islands is up by
Argentina.
Shetland Islands near
By
Scotland.
Argentina, yeah.
So just a little different area.
Well, you can see why you were ambassador and not me.
Argentina, not Australia. Thank you for correcting me. Thank you, Carlos. But I wanted to just share also, I think this is a values race. We are all suffering under this inflation, and moms want some say, and dads too, in their kids' education. But we're all suffering under this inflation so much that the average Pennsylvanian is paying $8,000 more today than they were under the last month of President Trump's presidency. And $8,000 is a lot of money. And it has to do with all these huge multi-trillion-dollar spending bills that the Biden administration and Congress pushed out the door. It also has to do with his war on Pennsylvania energy and the loss of our energy dominance that we had under President Trump. Well, Mehmet Oz and Doug Mastriano support energy dominance, and they're going to help us regain and even go forward, because the world is hungry for our energy, and we can also power our entire country. I'm excited to just share with you. I'm now the vice chair for the Center for Energy and the Environment at America First Policy Institute, and that's a group of largely former Trump White House officials who are helping to create policy for the next Republican administration in 2025, but also next year in 2023 in January, when we take that House back and the Senate as well. I'm also working with the Heritage Foundation, and they have about 30 conservative organizations that are doing something really unique. They're writing a book for the next conservative administration, and it's a lot like what they did for Ronald Reagan, which was groundbreaking, creating in 10 different areas of the government a blueprint, if you will, like a roadmap to get our center back for the conservative agenda, to put America, the American people first. And I'm helping to write the chapter on the State Department, because we know there's so much waste there at the State Department. And the agenda has gone off of promoting American business and success, diplomatic success. And we're literally using tax dollars to fund transvestite dancers now in Ecuador and paying for abortions around the world. And so we want to get back to conservative America First principles and stop spending our tax dollars as if they're endless. They're not. And it's outrageous what they're spending in this administration.
My question to you is, you're versed on the U.S. Senate race here in Pennsylvania. You were part of it.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about your feelings when you watched the debate and you heard John Fetterman, and listen, all the ailments that he has aside? I mean, we don't need chapter and verse as to how fit he is or he isn't. Everyone can figure that out by themselves. But talk to me about when you heard him say that he was a pro fracking. What went through your mind based on the fact that you were in this race and you know about the issues in the U.S. Senate?
Well, compassionately, because he is post-stroke, and so is my dear father. It's not just a speech issue; it's a brain function issue. You should your viewers should know that this isn't how they're holding it out. That it's just he has to process. This is not processing. This is understanding words. And so when he said, "I support fracking," I don't. His actual opinion was overriding what he was supposed to say at that moment. Clearly, he doesn't support fracking, and he, if elected to the Senate, would vote 110% with the Biden agenda, because he's to the left of Bernie Sanders. He would actually pull the Senate further to the left, to the detriment of working men and women here in Pennsylvania. Yes, I think he is profoundly damaged. I hear that there's other health problems, and I saw that Shapiro just made a statement yesterday and said, if he's elected to the Senate but has a health issue, he's going to appoint this female mayor of, was it Scranton or some other city here in the Commonwealth? So he's already signaled to everybody else, look, if he gets elected, he's out the door, which is shocking that they didn't put Connor Lamb in his place when that happened. But anyway,
Selfish. It's selfish on his part. And actually, if you're a
Incredibly
Democrat,
selfish.
you should be upset. You really should. Of course, you have
But
compassion for someone who suffered an illness, but let's not mince words. He's not fit for the job. He wasn't fit for the job before his illness. He'd be a disaster, and it was a selfish thing to stay in even before the primary with this illness. That's just the truth.
but I think it goes further. It goes further than that. I think this is female power. I think his wife, just like Jill Biden, because they both know their husbands are not capable of doing normal things. She is so hungry that I heard that they would not pull him out of the race around the primary time unless the party was willing to put her in as the candidate. And she's even crazier than he is. So you can see that this is, I think, female power, and she is just a hungry lady that wants power, no matter how it affects Pennsylvania.
And formerly undocumented. But Robert brought up a great point earlier today. He was talking about the reason why the Democratic Party puts up such horrible candidates is that they're not the candidates. There are people behind the scenes that run these candidates. And maybe Robert, you could talk a little bit about that. It's your riff, so I'll let you talk about it.
Well, I'll be brief about it. It's interesting to talk to the ambassador here about this and get her thoughts, because I believe that the reason that Joe Biden is the model for the quintessential Democrat candidate is because they know he's pliable. They know he's controllable, because unfortunately he also has illnesses, and he's been someone that career-wise has been shown that he's willing to shift, like the Hyde Amendment. He's willing to go against 20 years of, tradition he had because he talked to Alyssa Milano, allegedly. I think that's interesting, and I wanted to ask you, Ambassador, as someone who's been involved in politics and ran for Senate yourself, can you even imagine running to be a puppet and not having your values and your ideas be the thing that you're putting forth? One of the things I respected about you is, regardless if you agree or not with your positions, you were upfront with what your positions were. It's your duty as a candidate to say, this is what I believe. Talk about the duplicitous nature of sort of someone that's allowing people to control them behind the scenes, and how that bodes very ill for electing someone like that because they don't have the integrity necessary to lead.
Yeah, Robert, I have a couple thoughts about that. First of all, maybe it's not so smart to put your positions out in front. Barack Obama did, and he just kind of said, hope and change, baby. And he did okay. Everybody just projected whatever they wanted on him, and it worked. Kind of the same thing with Joe Biden. I mean, he just hung out in the basement and kind of said, a couple of nasty things to especially minorities, but otherwise he just kind of floated around and didn't say much. I do believe that the Democrats are very effective in keeping their elected officials in lockstep with the program. The program is the left. I think the media and the hard left nonprofits have a lot to do with the agenda, the Soros type folks. But the agenda is the agenda, and they don't get out of line very often. Joe Manchin got out of line a little bit. Kristen Sinema, do you see how they bedeviled them, following her into the ladies' room, and criticizing him, saying terrible things about him? These are people that act like animals, but they keep their elected officials in line for sure. Look at Nancy Pelosi and how she's cracked the whip so successfully and gotten these multi-trillion-dollar bills passed when they should never have been passed. And we wouldn't be in the pickle of inflation right now if she had failed. So, I think the Republicans, we're all pretty much independent-minded. We tend to think about liberty and freedom as a real thing, not just a sort of an idea. And so we tend to be hard to corral when we're like herding cats, I think. And if you look at a Mitt Romney and how he goes off the range, and a couple of others, even during my time when I was based in Copenhagen, I think that we could take a lesson about staying on message, on focus, and get a little more done that way. And I don't mean not be independent minded, but come up with an agenda that's acceptable and then push it forward. And I think bringing people together in the party, you have to have a big tent to win. So you do have to have those Mitt Romneys and those Tom Cottons and the whole spectrum there. in order to win. And that's important to keep in mind because our base tends to be very angry about the rhinos, but you got to have a big tent.
Can you talk about your experience on the campaign trail this year in the U.S. Senate race regarding the elusive suburban housewives? Can you tell us a little bit about what your experience was in talking to them?
Sure. So it depended where I was. If I was talking to an African American housewife in Philadelphia, she absolutely wanted more security on the streets. She was worried about her kids, and it was about crime. And then if I was in Western PA talking to them, they were worried that there might be some activist sexualization curriculum coming to their kids' school, but they really wanted the energy sector to be unleashed and more jobs for their husband, for their kids. So it depended where in the Commonwealth I was. Some of these former cities are now shadows of themselves, and they went from 35,000 people to 5, and businesses have just moved away, mostly to China, to Asia. And if we're going to be a country, you have to make things. And I think that's one thing we're seeing with all these munitions being sent over to Ukraine. We don't have the capacity anymore to even replace this stuff. I think there's back orders of 4 years now for some of the most basic munitions that we need for our defense, not just Ukraine. So we have to make stuff, and why not do it here in Pennsylvania? But we're going to need a cheerleader as governor, a business person that's going to attract business here, and then a senator who has his back that's going to also work to bring business. And in that way, we're going to make Pennsylvania great again. It's been sliding for a long time. I mean, decades. But there's no reason with our skilled workforce, get these young men back into the workforce off of the sidelines, incentivize them. Wages have to keep up with inflation. I often like to say, when I was a kid, one breadwinner could support a family, have a car, have a nice home, feed the kids, clothe them. Today, those couples, they're both working, the husband and wife, and they're hustling, and they may be in the gig economy or working in a fulfillment warehouse somewhere, not getting paid what one wage earner was, hardly even together. So I think that the middle class has not been served well by our leadership for decades here in Pennsylvania. I think Doug Mastriano, because of his passion, his determination to make Pennsylvania great again, I think he can get it done.
So
I have one more.
Oh, go ahead.
I have one more question, then I'll throw it to Robert, and then I'd like you to talk about.
And then I'm going to jump. Okay.
Yeah. I know you have to wrap up. Nope.
When you post the primary, tell me the moment you knew. Tell me the moment you knew after talking to Dr. Oz that convinced you that he was the right guy. What was that moment? What did he say? How did he make you feel when you said to yourself, "Yeah, we're in good hands"? After the primary.
Well, so it's almost like there's not just something goes down. I mean, you're running, and suddenly you're not. So it comes upon you over time, the character of the people you're running against, and who you can really support, and who you say to yourself, "My God, this could be dangerous. This could be dangerous." I would have a really hard time swallowing that. But the fact is, any Republican candidate is better than John Fetterman. So for me, I'm a party girl. The Republican Party is my political home. It is the home, like I said earlier, love of God, love of country, love of our families, love of our great small businesses. And if that's what the Republican Party stands for, I stand with them. And so, I've supported strong Republican candidates. I've supported Republican candidates when they were maybe my 5th choice. But I always do so because it's essential if we're going to win. That's the only way you win. It doesn't matter if you love the candidate or not. It matters if they share most of your values. Then you vote for them. And that's Doug Mastriano, Mehmet Oz, Kerry Del Rosso, just all the way down the ticket, the Republican congressman. our state senator, our state representative. The row offices are super important, as we know. The sheriff, if they're on the ballot, you have to vote for all of them. If there's a judge on the ballot, I don't think there are this time, but if there is a local one, you vote for the one that shares your values most closely.
Ambassador, I can't thank you enough for being here. I thought it was very important to get a perspective on why, even if you didn't cheer for someone in the primary, it is so important to get out there and vote Republican. And what better person to get that message from than someone who actually ran and is pushing that message so eloquently as you. So I can't thank you enough. It really, I do think will help encourage people to get out there and vote. And we know we'll see good things from you in the future. We really appreciate your time coming on.
It's my pleasure. Go work the polls. Go give out literature for your favorite candidate as people are walking in. You can change hearts and minds right there at the last moment. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Ambassador.
Thank you.